Okay, before this video gets started, if you like this video, please tell me. If you don't like this video, please tell me what I can fix. I'm trying long form content, but that's not my strong suit, and editing is very new to me. So if this is something you like, please let me know what I can fix. Please let me know what you enjoyed. Please let me know what you didn't enjoy. This is quite the first video to start out with because chaos occurred around every corner. But if you like it, then I'd love to hear from you. And if not, I'd also like to hear from you to tell me what I can fix. So yeah, with that, welcome to the video, and I hope you enjoy.
For the last few months, I've been sculpting skulls and decorating them for ArtPrize. After finishing the toucan skull, I think it's finally time to start on the next skull, an owl. So today, let's take some time and bring the Cuban giant owl back to life. But first, we have to collect our references. The Cuban giant owl is the largest owl to ever exist, which is why I chose it. I want my pieces to be as real as they can get, but I also want them to be big enough so they can be seen across the room. The Cuban giant owl works perfect for this. Unfortunately, the Cuban giant owl is extinct, and there aren't great pictures of its skull. To fight this, I'll be using references of a regular owl and making changes to the sculpt as needed. When it comes to designing my skulls, getting them as accurate to the real thing as possible is extremely important. So after making sure the reference photos are the right size, I print and cut them out before laying them under a plastic wrap and begin sculpting. Before that, I'd like to make the size of this owl set into you. This thing was hip height on a 5'10" human being. Hip height! That's insanity.
And this is the part of the video where I now have to explain myself because I completely scrapped the owl. Completely. Totally just threw it in the trash. And there's a few reasons for that. One, I didn't like how it was going. And two, I did not have enough time. I have spent the last month in a hospital. Now, if you keep up on my shorts, you'll realize how much of my time this took up. However, this was an entire cascading event of just insanity. It started with my grandma, who was in the hospital for the entire month. In that time frame, my sister, my mom, and my dad was in the hospital twice during this time. It was just one thing after another that led to another thing and then another. So my entire month was spent going to my grandma's house, the hospital, my house, my grandma's house, the hospital, my grandma's house, hanging out with my grandma in the hospital, hanging out with my sister in the hospital, hanging out with my mom in the hospital, and hanging out with my dad in the hospital, and then going back to my grandma and hanging out with her in the hospital. Finally, though, everybody is out of the hospital, healthy, safe, and back to normal, which means I can continue on with this project. So with all that time taken up at the hospital, I'm in a very, 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 very tight time crunch, and hand sculpting was not going to do it. So I purchased a 3D printer, and this helped with multiple things. One, accuracy. Now my skulls will be almost exactly how they're supposed to look if they were real skulls. And two, this saved me so much time. I got 3 skulls printed in a matter of a week, where it would have taken me an entire week just to sculpt the one skull. This will not hinder the art itself because the main design is the pattern and drawings on the skull. And I'm back once again to tell you that after some careful consideration, I actually will not be having the smaller pieces entered into ArtPrize because I feel like the Triceratops skull itself needs to be the focal point, and having these smaller ones will draw away from that. With that being said, however, I will be putting them up for sale at a local art gallery in my area, and I will give more details on that later. But as of right now, just the Triceratops will be submitted into ArtPrize. With that being said, we can get back into the video. The next step with these skulls is adding texture, and the easiest way I've ever found to do that is to take ripped up paper towel and a glue mixture tinted with paint to add a very subtle texture. I make this mixture using 1 part water to 1 part Elmer's glue and just a little tiny bit of paint to add a touch of color. In flatter areas that don't have a lot of texture, you have to make sure to stipple the brush instead of swipe the brush, because otherwise it'll leave the texture of the paper towel or the design. It's actually better to have a paper towel without a design, but I can't ever find any of those. So if you're ever trying to get this texture, just make sure to stipple instead of swipe so the design of the paper towel does not follow through to the end of your piece. What's interesting is that while putting the paper towel mixture onto the skulls, it was very see-through, and once it dried, it became very almost orange with like a very subtle undertone. I actually had to bring it back with some paint to make it more of a neutral tone. I did do multiple layers of the paper towel in order to make sure that none of the creases and folds that naturally happen on big areas weren't showing through. Typically, you'd like to stay away from using big pieces of paper towel, but I was trying to fill a hole in the back of the skull, so I ended up using one big piece and then covered it with smaller pieces to hide the folds. Something satisfying stippling does is going over areas of like more texture, because as you stipple, the texture just like appears out of like almost nowhere. When it came time to paint the skulls, I used a generic water-based acrylic paint for airbrushes, and I started with a very just plain tan color and then went over everything with a darker brown followed by a black for like very high contrast shadows. I know a lot of people will probably criticize me for that in the end. However, I wanted this piece to be very, very high contrast so that it would kind of complement with the very dark line art that I end up doing in the end. I'm also kind of pulling away from like the realism side of it by doing the dark shadows with the black. But again, I want it to complement the line art that I end up doing, and I feel like this complements it very well. Another reason I'm adding black instead of like a darker brown or like a weathered color is for that reason specifically. I wanted to give this a very weathered, old, just decaying look. And although black you wouldn't necessarily see naturally, it definitely boosts that look in making it look very, very old. And if you watch my shorts, you'll realize that the stuff I'm using right now to add weathering is very old water mixed with paint that's been sitting out for months, and the entire time I was using it, it stunk so bad. Like, I threw it out after using it this time because it was so bad. Just talking about it, I can smell it from just the memory of how awful it was. Now, I made it very dark, but to lighten everything up and show more of the contrast, I did a light dry brushing with a white paint that had a small bit of that original tan color mixed into it. It very much lightened everything while not making it look less old. Something you should keep in mind when dry brushing, and I feel like isn't said enough, when they say almost no paint on your paintbrush, if you think there's even if you think you're good, you're not. Brush more off. Like, there has to be almost no paint on that paintbrush. This is me showing the before and after of dry brushing. The after dry brushing just gives it a little bit more to look at, shows you a little bit more of the texture, makes it more visually interesting. And now we can get to my favorite part of these pieces, which is the drawing aspect, because I'm not a sculptor. I actually very much dislike sculpting, but I wanted this piece to be 3D, so I had to kind of suck it up. Each piece of this collection has a different flower as the centerpiece and like a Victorian filigree design wrapping around the... I was actually shocked because I haven't drawn a pansy in a while, and it only took me 15 minutes to do that pansy on the forehead of this skull, which I was very shocked about. The alligator, I think, is my least favorite of the collection because I leaned too much into having the design flow around the skull and forgot that it also needs to mix in with the flower. So it ends up kind of wrapping around the orchid more than I like now that I'm looking at it. I still like how this design turned out though. After deciding I wasn't going to be having these pieces in ArtPrize, other than the big Triceratops skull, I did decide to just post this video now, rather than finish all 5 skulls and then show you. So without further ado, here's the final results for the human skull and the alligator skull. I really like how these ended up turning out. I actually like the design on the human skull, I think more than even the Triceratops skull, but in the end, the Triceratops skull did take me more time, and it technically is higher quality than the human skull and the alligator skull. I really enjoyed doing this, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you did, please let me know your thoughts, like and subscribe, and yeah, comment below on if you want to see more. Thank you guys so very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. See ya, see ya!